All right, how we doing? About ready to start? That sounds good to me. It's hard for me to be patient. I want to go. But I understand about being late too. So if you've joined us already, I want to welcome you to Hendersonville Green Drinks. My name is Katie Bruckheimer and I'm your host this evening. Thanks for taking this hour with us on this lovely Thursday evening. We're gonna have some interesting talks today, but first I want to just say thanks for being flexible and joining us in this virtual format. We hope to get back to in-person sometime in the near future, but for tonight I want to give Katie Morris a chance to help us navigate online. She's going to say just a little bit about the Zoom webinar platform. Katie, what have you got?
Sure. So I know folks are getting accustomed to Zoom at this point, but in case anyone is new, you are muted and we can't see you, so don't worry there, but you'll be able to see us and Carleen's screen as we go along. You'll see at the bottom of your screen, you might have to move your mouse there to make the little menu pop up, that there's a chat option and a Q&A option and a raise hand option. If you have questions, feel free to submit them in the Q&A whenever, and we'll take questions at the end. And if you have any sort of technical issues, you can use the chat for those, and I'll do my best to help you out with those. But feel free to drop in any questions at any time, and that would be the place to do it. I think that's all I've got, Katie.
Good. All right. Well, this evening's plan is I'm going to talk a little bit about green drinks and what we are, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what's coming up. We have some good programs the next 3 months we're going to talk about. We're always on the second Thursday of every month at 6, as long as we are doing a virtual format. As Katie said, this is pretty informal. I've been amazed at how interactive our Zoom is getting. People are getting more and more comfortable with it. So do participate if you want to. If you have a question come up, put it in the Q&A or in the chat. And Carleen's going to be fairly informal in her talk, and she and Katie are going to help us navigate those questions. So don't be shy. Green Drinks is sponsored locally by MountainTrue and Conserving Carolina and Appalachian Coffee Company. We're hoping to get back there, but we'll keep you posted on when that happens. If it happens for our July Green Drinks, we'll certainly let you know, but we don't know yet. I want to thank my steering committee, because Katie and I don't do this by ourselves. We have a nice group of folks that help us make these events happen, and I always am appreciative. It's a great bunch, so thank y'all. What is Green Drinks? Well, Green Drinks is an international movement. There's people like us all over the planet getting together to talk and learn more about the environment. So we're one of 500 chapters for Green Drinks around the world. We have some interesting things coming up. Let me tell you about July. Our speaker is Andy Tate, and he's the director of a company called Eco Foresters, who will present on positive impact forestry. Andy will focus on how forests become degraded, whether it's invasive pests, poor timber management, fire exclusion, or climate change, and what forest stand improvement work his company does to help degraded forests on both private and public land. He will also talk about how certain timber harvesting can restore degraded stands of trees. On August 13th, Tony Dunn, a retired fire ecologist, will present. His title is Paradise Lost: How Climate Change is Devastating Our Communities. Tony and his wife call themselves climate refugees. They moved here from Paradise, California, just barely escaping the horrible fires there, excuse me, in 2018. On September 10th, Hume Davenport, the founder of the nonprofit South Wings, will talk about how they assist environmental organizations by taking them up in small airplanes. They're looking at environmental issues from the top down. For example, when we drive our cars by the Lake Julian power plant, we don't get the full picture. We see a stack, we see a lot of gravel, but South Wings takes environmental nonprofits up in airplanes to get a top-down view, and you can see a whole lot more of an operation from that angle. So I'm really pleased about today to introduce our speaker. I've known Carleen for a few years now because I serve on her advisory committee, and I have a lot of respect for what she does taking care of our parks. Carleen is relatively new to her position in Henderson County, but she has over 20 years experience in the field. She received her degree in Parks and Recreation from Colorado State University and has earned top credentials available in her field as a certified Parks and Recreation executive. She currently lives in Brevard with her family. In fact, she is a Transylvania County native. So without further ado, Carleen, you're up.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks for the kind introduction, and I'm excited to be here. It's been a number of months coming since we were supposed to do this back right at the beginning of COVID, and so it's exciting to at least get with you guys virtually, which seems like our new norm these days. So I'm going to roll through some slides and just kind of give you guys a perspective of Parks and Recreation and then kind of how things have changed. And so we're just going to roll through this, and feel free to ask questions, and I'll try to address them all and give you guys a good idea of what we do in Parks and Rec. So this slide you see here now was just a fun slide. This is just me in the middle with my crazy Santa hat on with the crew at a holiday event. And just talking about me. Katie said I've been working in Parks and Recreation for over 20 years. I've worked in 3 different states and for 5 different agencies, all in either county or city government. I am from Brevard, and so this is my home. I love it here. Was happy to move back a number of years ago, and I really just enjoy serving people, the public, through Parks and Recreation. Today I'm going to talk about who we are, parks maintenance, administration, recreation programs, and special events, kind of our big picture, how ways you can get involved if you're interested, and COVID impact, and then definitely some Q&A time. So we're going to get started with parks and maintenance. Parks and maintenance is likely my biggest division in Parks and Recreation, and sometimes it goes unnoticed. Just kind of, they tend to stay behind the scenes of these gorgeous parks and that they maintain and make all the events and things happen. There's a lot that goes into it. Our park supervisor is Jason Kilgore. And this screen just gives you a highlight of all of our parks. We've got over 400 acres of parks, 11 parks that are currently opening, 2 that we have pending, 10 picnic shelters throughout all the parks, 23 sports fields. You guys can read this, but it's just kind of an overview. We have a couple of community centers, dance room, classrooms, everything that we work with. We only have 1 gymnasium and 10 tennis courts. So part of the side of park maintenance that people don't always see is repairing the park fixtures. It's just a picture of one of our slides. It gets damaged and replaced often, it seems, just with heavy use. And then another picture of new additions going into a park. This was a project where they were working on some additional fencing to help with our soccer field at the Athletics and Activities Center. And while park maintenance may not seem like that, that's not park maintenance working on the fencing there, but our parks maintenance do a lot to coordinate those projects and oversee them, and work with me to fund them and work with finance. So a lot of work and a lot of juggling of tasks that they do. Here's another couple of pictures, them putting in some concrete stuff for new basketball goals that we installed at Jackson Park a little while back. And then on the right-hand side, you see the flooding challenges. And many of you have experienced this firsthand, and being in Jackson Park at times. This was definitely a time where it was over the road and the roadway was closed. You have to use the back entrance into the park. This is definitely a area of struggle in Jackson Park for us, because regularly closes our park and our fields and our trail, the section of Oklawaha Trail. Some other things that are kind of ongoing challenges with park maintenance are aging parks. Jackson Park came into existence and was basically built in 1975. Many of our other parks are around that same age. And so what you see is aging infrastructure and challenges with keeping those on par and for the high level of use. The picture you see on the left is a dugout area in Jackson Park for one of our ball fields. And I'm happy to say the picture on the right has been repaired since this picture was taken, but these are columns that are on the Jackson Park house. And I just thought of sharing these facts with you because as we look at some of these pictures, our climate is definitely impacts us and the flooding impacts us and more than just Jackson Park and a number of our parks. And I lived in Seattle at one point, and so I wanted to share statistics there because everybody always says it rains so much in Seattle, but I thought it was interesting to see these are average annual rainfall statistics. Now these were gathered via NOAA. You could probably find some varying numbers out there, but this was a trusted source that I felt confident in sharing this with you just for reference. But as you can see, in 2016, we were at about 45 inches in Henderson County, all the way up to 2018, where we had about close to 80 inches of rain in the county. And when you're looking at other areas, even Charlotte had 59 that year, Seattle at 35, almost 36, and the average of about 35 in the US. So those trends, as we've continued to get heavy rainfall, I'm sure they've all impacted you guys in some way, have highly impacted us in the amount of use we can handle in the parks, how the parks were built in 1975, not handling drainage to the levels of rainfall that we have. And so it's definitely an impact on our park staff and maintaining and operating facilities. These are some interesting facts. I find that some of these kind of amaze people when they hear the first one. Jackson Park alone, we have 67 trash cans that must be emptied 7 days a week. During an average one-day tournament, we can easily go through about 250 rolls of toilet paper. We have 7 full-time staff in parks to maintain all 400 acres of parks and facilities. The Upper Hickory Nut Gorge Trailhead has 26 acres and a hiking trail access. Now, many people don't know that this is a partnership park area with Conserving Carolina. Conserving Carolina actually owns the land in a partnership for the trails, but the county owns the trail access and parking lot there. So we work in partnership with them on that. If you haven't been out there, it's a great place to go explore. And then another newest shelter and gazebo at Tuxedo Park were paid for by the Green River Community Association. This is a picture of those, the gazebo and the shelter. The Green River Community Association has worked with the county to develop this park and fundraise for the development and installation of new items as it continues to go. But this is our newest operating park in the county. If you haven't been out there, I recommend you go check it out. It's a great location. So the next division within Parks and Recreation is administration. And although they are small, they are very powerful. Our administration offices are located on Grove Street at the Athletics and Activities Center, generally open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. And Corey Blackwell is our supervisor for this division. And why I say they're small but powerful is that Corey's kind of the mainstay. I work with him closely, but he has 3 part-time staff, and they manage the front offices. So if you're calling in ever to seek assistance or to come in and register for something, they're the ones going to help you. They run our online registration for programs. They run our online rentals. They offer the scholarship program. And in 2019, we provided about 80 different scholarships to programs. We offered about 435 programs in 2019 with over 4,000 individuals enrolled in those. So they stay busy at the front desk and administration. These were also some numbers of programs being offered. And when we were originally going to do this, this was current for March. Obviously with COVID, these numbers have changed due to restrictions. But in March 2020, we had over almost getting close to 10,000 accounts of people who registered and rent with us. And over 2,000 reservations were made in the last 60 days. We had 116 programs that were being offered. Corey also handles the coordination of a 13-member advisory board, which Katie is a part of. Thank you, Katie. They manage all the financial transactions through the department, and they manage all the permitting for facility use and special events. So they stay busy. There's a lot going on, even though it's a small crew. And the last division is recreation programs and special events. And for many of you, this is probably the area you're most familiar with. Quarterly, we put out a recreation guide, and this was an advertisement we did for last year in spring. The recreation guide is primarily online, but we will print out copies of the programs for people to pick up at our office if necessary. This guide, again, it comes out quarterly. Shows all our programs that we offer, tournaments that we do in-house, contracted programs that we work with people on, and it usually has all our details on rentals and upcoming special events in it. We offer a fairly large summer camp. This year it's being impacted, of course, with COVID, but generally we have about 10 weeks of summer camps that we're offering. Some of those are half-day programs and some of those are full-day. Each week is a little different. Some may be themed with sports, some with arts, some adventure camps. They're some of our most popular, where we head out into the woods and do all kinds of fun stuff, adventuring in the Western North Carolina. Our summer camps, they travel a lot, and so they're very popular. We go to all kinds of interactive locations with the kids. And so the restrictions that we have currently have really impacted what we've been able to do there, but we're still offering some camps this summer and trying to move forward to help people out with some activities. So. This is just a highlight in one of our newer programs, Abilities Tennis. This is a program in a partnership with Abilities Tennis of North Carolina. And this is a program for people who have varying developmental disabilities, but it welcomes everybody ages 8 and up to come out and work on tennis one-on-one with a volunteer. And they go through teaching and clinic style work, and then they have the opportunity to play in some tournaments through Abilities Tennis that happen regionally and statewide. And so this is a great growing program in North Carolina that is volunteer based. We partner with them to make sure they have the facilities they need and help market and register people. But it's been a great program. Tricia King, who is also on our Recreation Advisory Board, has been a mainstay in making this program happen. So we're excited about it. Time to Dance. This is just an example of a contracted program. We have a number of instructors who have skills in our community and they want to offer a program through us. And we offer a contracted program, service to where we handle the registrations and the marketing and the facility, and then the instructor handles the teaching, the lineup, the instruction, and then we have a partnership contract that works out with that. So this is an example of a dance program that we do that with. We have a lot of programs that we do this with, and it's a great way to bring more skills and diversity into our programs. So we're excited about this. Generally, every summer we have a free outdoor movie nights. Generally, there are 4 that happen. This was what was planned for this year, and I will tell you these have changed due to circumstances, but in lieu of the first one, we've already done a drive-in movie instead of the regular movie night where you bring your own chair and everybody sets up together. So we tried a drive-in movie a couple weeks back that went really well in Jackson Park, so we're excited about that. We might be doing another one in lieu of another one of these outdoor movie series. We're hoping, though, later we'll be able to open this back up. These are free events that take place in different parks. We're trying to engage different communities and have a family night in the park where you can come out and get some popcorn, drinks, and enjoy a night under the stars while you watch a movie. These are some, I just wanted to talk a little bit about big picture items that have been going on. Many of you might have been involved in the Henderson County Greenway Master Plan. This was a big project undertaken by our planning division with some outside help and a number of volunteers in the community. He sat on a committee with us to create an overall Henderson County Greenway master plan that has a 30-year vision. And this was adopted in April of last year, and we continue to see great things coming out of this and connections with the municipalities in the county and outside, and trying to connect all those greenway spaces as we go forward. So there's a lot happening with this. The other big picture item that I wanted to mention was the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. To date, the county has never had a comprehensive plan for Parks and Recreation. There have been a couple of parks with master plans, but nothing for the overall department. And so this is something that we've started work on. The first step in this process was to do a needs assessment piece. We did a full ADA assessment of all of our parks and facilities within Parks and Recreation, and actually that's been completed. And we also did a statistically valid survey to residents in the community that asked any number of questions about use and desire for facilities and programs and parks within our system. It was a great survey. It has been completed. We planned to have the contractor who worked with me on this survey do a presentation to the commissioners in the spring, but that's been delayed because of travel and the inability to get everybody together in one location in a room. So we were hoping to host this in the fall to talk about the outcome of the survey. It's interesting to see all the data come together for that. And those pieces will take us into the next steps of completing the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan to develop a plan that can guide us into the next 20 years for how parks are developed, how they're maintained, how they're renovated, especially important with some of our older parks as we continue to try to maintain them and keep them at a safe and viable access for everybody in our community. So we're excited about this too. Ways to get involved. If you haven't been involved with Parks and Recreation, volunteering is a number one thing. We always have stuff going on. You can volunteer to be on the Recreation Advisory Board, submit an application for that as Katie did herself. When we have an opening, the board reviews those applications and we'll select somebody. You can volunteer to work at a special event when we have them. I know they're limited right now, but we will be having some in the near future. And volunteer to add a park cleanup. We work closely with Conserving Carolina and some other groups that generally at least once a year do a big park cleanup. And so that's a great way to do it. We also have people that come in, classes, churches that want to do service in the parks, and they'll come and contact us about other opportunities for doing a cleanup day or how they can partner with us on a project. So we are always looking for ideas and happy to work with people on those. You can also be a Senior Games ambassador. If you like sports, we have an amazing Senior Games program, North Carolina Senior Games program, and we have a number of ambassadors who are volunteers that work on that. And then, as I just spoke earlier, you can teach a class. If you have a special skill or a talent, or you're an artist of some kind or a musician, we are always looking for new programs and interested in contracting with people. So if you have a skill or talent, we will send you a application information about it and what it looks like to contract with us to offer a program and how we might make that happen. And then finally, a partnership or a sponsorship. We have a number of partners in the community. The pictures you saw earlier of this shelter and the gazebo is through a partnership with Green River Valley Association, Community Association. And we have a number of partners like that that work with us in varying parks throughout the county or varying programs. We also offer sponsorships for many of our special events and programs out there where people can get some marketing out of it to help support a great program. And so my staff do a great job of working through and partnering with people to make that happen. What have we been doing during COVID? This is an interesting topic because I feel like it changes by the second or the minute or the hour of the day, the week, as many of you know in your own lives and jobs. We had a number of kind of steps to shut down different areas in the parks, starting with certain classes and programs, athletics, And so we went through a number of phases to get to a shutdown point. However, we never fully shut down. All of our parks stayed open throughout the entire COVID process. Most agencies in the state and even the governor supported parks being open, allowing people to get outside as long as they were social distancing and not in large gatherings. And we've got a lot of feedback on that. It's been very important to people and their mental health during this time. And so we were happy to be able to do that. There were some challenges with it because we had to close restrooms in the parks. We had to close playgrounds, and we could not host large events and rentals. So there was definitely some challenges with it, but the staff have been amazing to take on all the new challenges with the COVID in this situation and keep the parks running and professional and providing everybody with access that they might not have had otherwise. And now I'm happy to say that we're in steps of reopening, as most places are. Reopening included opening our restrooms in all of our parks. It included opening up to rentals as long as they meet state guidelines for, it's CDC guidelines, of course, but the state have been a little more strict. So the state guidelines, and that included picnic shelters, ball fields, soccer fields, things like that. So people could start getting a little more organized in their activities when we were able to open up and follow a little bit looser restrictions. Where we're at now and our steps for the future is that we're continuing to support the phase 2 steps in the youth activities and sports that we're able to do now. Playgrounds are still closed. We're hoping, I think in phase 2 or in phase 3, that might be a possibility of those opening back up. And now we're making a lot of plans for indoor facilities because our indoor facilities have been closed throughout this whole process. So we have a large old schoolhouse where we have 10 classrooms and a gymnasium and a dance room. Those are going to be some of our more challenging areas to open up. And so staff have been working on plans to how we can start classes at safe levels while social distancing and getting people in and out of the facility safely with little to no contact with other groups. And so there's a lot of work going in behind the scenes with that now. But I'm happy to say it's going well. And I think, with the next phase, we're going to have a lot more opportunity to open up. So we're excited about that. And then the other fun things that have been going on is that my staff have been super creative and they've created activity packs. So virtually, we have been sending out emails through our mailing list. And there's some online games through that they've created. They have created some craft videos, which you get in that. They have also put together packets, which you pick up. We call them activity bags. And the craft videos you get, we put all the supplies in the activity bags. Some other games and different things in there. Some have included painting canvases and paints, all kinds of stuff. Hacky sacks keep people moving. And so every 2 weeks we've done an activity bag and people sign up for, and they're free. We have a location at our gym where people can drive by. We have the door open and a sign up, and people can honk their horn and the staff will deliver them their activity bags that they signed up for. So we're continuing to do this and continuing to think of other ways to be virtually and remotely active and keep kids and families involved and connecting. And that's a big thing during this time. And we want to continue to provide that community connectivity for others. So we have a few more coming up, another activity bag. And then for the 4th of July, we're looking at doing an activity bag as well. That's going to have some fun 4th of July stuff. And we're looking at different ways to distribute that based on the activities going on in the community. So more information will be coming up on that. If you're interested in getting any of that information, you can go to our website and sign up for our newsletter. And then you'll get all that information via email for any of the things we have coming up. And that is the bulk of my presentation, kind of a quick overview of Parks and Recreation and what's been going on with the COVID situation. There's a lot of things that have changed and a lot of things I was going to cover with you guys back in March, but a lot of those things have changed and we just don't know where they're going to be going. So I'm happy to answer questions on any of the programs, parks, facilities, services that we have and where we're headed. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Carleen. We do have a couple questions that came in, so I'll go ahead and read some of those out to you.
Okay, great.
We had a question from Steve about the audio for drive-in movies and how that works?
Absolutely. So this was the first time we did a drive-in movie, and we sought out a company for renting the screen and the services for a drive-in movie specifically. They have an FM transmitter, and so if you're in your car, windows are rolled up, you can have your AC running if it's hot, and you just turn your radio on. We give you a radio station when you arrive to turn it on so you can hear the movie in your car. And so everybody was social distance and just stayed in their cars the whole time. We did have outside speakers set up, so if somebody was getting out of the car to go use a restroom, or the staff could also hear it while they were working to facilitate everything. So it was a lot of fun.
Thanks. We had another question from Steve about where the new parks that are planned are located.
So the parks that are located, Coons Farm is right across the river from Westfelt Park. So that is an area of land that was donated to county. And it is an area that we've struggled with a little bit with development. This all started long before I was here, but we've worked on it, and it's in a floodway. Right now we work with North Carolina State to do some farming research areas on it. And we are working on the Greenway access through there. So if you go to Westfelt Park up by the airport, it's just across the river there. It's not open yet, but we hope to be able to have some Greenway access there to continue on into Buncombe County from that location, ultimately once we get our Greenway plan going through. So that's kind of the main focus of that trail area there. The other one is up off of 25, which is a partnership with Conserving Carolina, which the land was acquired as a part of Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant in partnership with Conserving Carolina. And they are working on funding, and we have been working through some design phases for access there. It'll be a small road area with a small parking area and some trail access will be kind of the first phase of that. And yeah, they're in fundraising now, and then as soon as we get to a point where we're having enough funding to start that first phase, that's where we're at. So yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
And we had a question from Grace that says, are there any stream restoration projects in the parks to reduce erosion?
Grace, that is a great question. And I am working with our Soil and Water Division for Henderson County on some stream restoration issues at Edneyville. At the Edneyville Community Center, we have a large grass area behind there and a creek area that runs back there. And through some of the, through many years, I guess, of farming and different things out there, the river area out there has been straightened to a point that causes erosion. You know, it doesn't have any kind of natural flow. And so due to the number of heavy rain incidents we've had, especially in the last 2.5 years, we have some severe erosion there. Probably at one point we've lost 30 feet of banking there, which is very significant if you go out there. And so as the heavy rains come, it's creating kind of its own meandering path due to the erosion and how the river had been transformed over time to a straight shot. So we are working with Soil and Water on some grant opportunities. We've already tried a couple. They weren't quite successful, but we have a new grant opportunity that's coming up that we have submitted for application opportunity. You have to get approved for it, but I think we have a really good shot. If you've ever worked on any of this, it's expensive, and it's kind of the last, it's not the pretty project that a lot of people want to see, something new, restoring the river. Not everybody thinks that's a top priority, even though we know it's very important. We need to maintain that land. And with that project, we're also looking at having some educational access there to be able to invite schools, once we get it done, to come out and have an area they can access the river and see what a stream restoration project looks like, and how we've buffered, and how the meandering works, and how it's important to have vegetation, and how that all connects together to maintain that area. So yes, we have a big project right there that we are hopeful is going to be happening in the next couple of years.
Awesome. We had a quick comment from Jan that just says, thank you so much. Great that you're still doing wonderful activities during this time. So
Thank you, Jan. We're trying. Any ideas you guys have, send them our way. We'll take a look.
And then we had a question about the flooding in Jackson Park that says, you mentioned the flooding in Jackson Park on the Greenway. Are there any steps currently being taken to address it or plan to do so?
Yeah. So the Greenway is a challenging area. We have, at one point when we were doing some work for the Greenway evaluation, we hired Equinox out of Asheville area to do some work with us on this area and come up with some solutions for the area. The area that the Greenway goes through that floods in Jackson Park is a floodway. It's naturally a floodway. It was, when they originally built it there, it wasn't meant to be a year-round access point because it did flood, but it's an easement and it's an easy access, which has traditionally been where a lot of greenways have been built. However, with that said, Ocala is it's a popular trail and people want to use it and I want to use it and we want to get through there 24/7 every day of the year. And so the outcome with that study with Equinox is that we were looking at kind of a boardwalk situation that would elevate the section that comes underwater 9 times out of 10. And I think it's a solid plan. It's challenging. Again, there was no easy solution for this area because of the flooding and the banking that goes through there and the sediment that has settled. It is a very challenging area that doesn't drain even right after it floods. So we have a plan. We have applied for a PARTF grant, the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant. However, it was not recommended through the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. It did not receive funding. Parks and Recreation Trust Fund is really looks at a lot of amenities and how much you're adding to the park, and renovations such as this are challenging through PARTF to get funding. So they have suggested that we look another route. And so we are continuing to work on that and look at opportunities for grant funding. There's another one I'm looking at now. Land and Water Conservation Fund was refunded to a certain level. It has some restrictions. It has federal funding with it. And so it has a lot of hoops to jump through, but we are looking at it to see if it's a viable option to get this area moving into the right direction so people can be on it a lot more often and have an option when it floods. So I hope that answers your question.
I think it probably did. Right now we have one more question from Grady and Kathleen that says, any activity fields or courts planned for Tuxedo Park?
Actually, we were working with the Green River Community Association, and when we originally did that park, they had a master plan developed. And I think the next piece of that master plan that they want to take on is potentially, they kind of do fundraising pieces for each segment that they wanted to bring into the park. And so the next one I think they're going to want to build is a basketball court. And so right now they're working on some details with that. And COVID has slowed that down a little bit, of course, with everybody kind of being out of the loop for a little bit. But I'm waiting to hear from them on their suggestions for the association and the plans for moving forward on the basketball court. And so that's our next step at Tuxedo Park.
Thanks. Those are all the questions that have come in so far. So if folks have outstanding questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A so I can read them to Carleen.
Well, you know me, I've always got something up my sleeve. I've been waiting my turn. No, I'm so glad that a question came in about the flooded part of the Ocala Greenway. And I know the county is working in that direction. Carleen, can you just mention, it's an awkward thing. The greenways seem to fall in two camps, the planning department and the Parks and Rec department. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, the planning department generally takes on a lot of roles with planning of any project and involvement there. And in the parks role, in the Parks and Recreation role, my role as the director would be working on that as far as looking at how a greenway or trail or access might be laid out, how it might be utilized, how I might make recommendations for ensuring proper use of it and long-term use and risk management and ongoing maintenance. So those are a lot of my big pieces of it. a lot of the inherent initial layout of looking for land and easements and rail access and all those pieces really get handled in the planning department. That's what they're great at. That's what they do. And so they're very knowledgeable in that area. And so that tends to be why you see the planning department involved so much at that level. Now, when we get into the design and the implementation and all those things, which are going to ultimately impact how it's managed and ran in later years, once it's open, that's where we really come into play. So to this point, I always sit in on those meetings and I work through the planning process with the planning department so we ensure we're kind of keeping those things in mind as we go. But at this point in time, all this stuff going on, that they've been the real experts on that. They also have the staff and the ability to help with grant writing and putting all the pieces together and the GIS and mapping pieces that might be needed. And I don't have those resources in my department. Based on our, as I was talking earlier, the amount of acres and parks and facilities and events going on, we stay stretched pretty thin with the amount of staff that we have, trying to be very frugal and efficient. And but when you have parks that, one of my staff, they can be at one park and they got to run over to another park. It's all the way across the county. It can take them 45 minutes to get there. So they're spread pretty thin. And stay busy on trying to keep all that stuff going. So it's helpful, extremely helpful, that we have the planning department that we do, and they're able to do a lot of that initial planning work and working through the details of that to help us get to a point where I can be a lot more involved in the implementation and management of it. Does that explain, Kat? Is that what you were looking for, Katie?
Yeah, thank you. That's good. I think we saw with the coronavirus when we were encouraged to get outside, the Oklawaha Greenway saw a lot more use, and I was so pleased that it continued to be open. That's 3.5 miles, but it's really a barrier once that flooded section in Jackson Park. We just can't move through there, and I know with the Greenway's master plan, one of the priorities in that is to get us to Blue Ridge Community College. And I know Conserving Carolina and the county are working on talking to landowners, planning the route, and it's going to be great. But if we have to swim, we have to swim across part of it. It's not, we want that connectivity. So I just want to mention, speaking to those people who are tuned in right now, we have to keep advocating for what we want. And I'll just put in a plug also for, Carleen does an amazing amount with a very small budget. And if we value our parks and if we value recreation, then we need to let our leaders know that. We need to stand up and advocate on behalf of the citizens. Carleen is a staff person. She can only do so much to get more money for her parks. But we can all stand up and say we want more. So I'm hoping in this comprehensive planning process with the parks, that's going to give us an opportunity to really stand up and say what we have is fabulous, but we need to take care of it, and we want more and better. So just a plug in that regard. So anything else? Did any more questions, comments come in?
Thank you, Katie. And I just, if you don't mind, I was just going to say, Katie's right. People always hesitate when I say, I encourage people to talk to the commissioners, and people think that might be a little weird as a staff person, but as a director, the commissioners want to hear from people. If you have an interest or a desire or a need, I think, they get hounded about some things all the time, and then they never hear about other things, and they don't have people reach out to them, I think, as much as people think they do. So anytime, I seek funding every year, as Katie knows, because she sits on our board, for many, many capital projects. This year, we're not receiving any funding going forward for capital projects just due to the COVID situation with budgets. However, I'm probably asking a billion times over. I feel like it, but we have to ask. And if there's requests in the community that they have gotten feedback on, and I place that ask, then they connect the two. It makes it a lot more important for them as to find funding to make it happen. And so it is important to talk. It's important to be involved. Katie sits on our advisory board, but anybody's welcome to attend our advisory board. They are public meetings. Our minutes are placed online, as well as the agenda. So we're excited to have anybody involved, even if you don't want to be in a role on the board. So any way I can help or answer questions on any of that, I'm happy to at any point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
It doesn't, excuse me, it doesn't look like we have any new questions that have come in. So if you've got more, Katie, go for it.
No, I represent passive recreation as I sit on Carleen's board. I'm learning a lot about the parks. I do understand the value of competitive sports, but we have a nice variety through her programming and her creative staff. So we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate to have Jackson Park. I had some people come into town for a meeting, and the meeting was actually at the old park office, the red brick building at Jackson Park. And as they drove through, they were amazed that we had that much acreage so centrally located in the middle of our county, and how great that was. So I was very proud of that. But now that I'm thinking about it, Carleen, tell us a little bit about what's going on in that old red brick building at Jackson Park.
Gotcha. So we affectionately just refer to it as the Jackson Park House. It was there long before Jackson Park existed. But the offices, as Katie said, used to be over there until they acquired the Athletics and Activities Center, which is where we're at now, which used to be the old Faith Christian School. The Jackson Park House then kind of became a little more vacant, and our park staff work out of there. They kind of had quarters there, but we had some offices that were empty upstairs on the second floor, and then downstairs we have a kind of a community room space that gets used for a number of different meetings and gatherings there, and is available for others to use. So one of our partnerships is with Ola Community Arts. We've worked with them on a number of events for years, including the International Kids Day Festival that usually takes place in Jackson Park. They reached out to us after receiving a grant here in the county to open a cultural arts center, and we're interested in using Jackson Park House as that. So we worked through a process and presenting some opportunities to the commissioners to host Ola Community Arts in the Jackson Park House. They do some amazing outreach. Their whole entire focus is introducing people to cultural arts in the communities of minorities in our community. And many people think that they are just working with Latino communities, but they're not. They're working with all types of minorities in and around Henderson County, Buncombe County, and further reaching to bring awareness to the communities about what's going on, to introduce these minority communities to opportunities that maybe they're unaware of in the community, to introduce services, and just bringing people together, really. They do a great job at this. So we worked out a partnership with them to have some office space in the facility. They did a number of upgrades to the interior. It looks fabulous. They are hosting some classes and cultural arts shows in the building. And in partnership through that, they also do some things for us, and that is work through, they'll translate forms and flyers for us whenever we need them. They will come out for having an event where we think we're going to need some people to communicate with us and translate on site. They'll attend one of the events with us. They have also offered we have a one-page ad in their Ola Carolina magazine to promote different activities and events in Parks and Recreation. So a fabulous Adriana and Ron are the stakeholders of that group, and they have lots of people that work with them, but they're a fabulous group to work with. And if you're not familiar with them, check them out. Look up OI Community Arts and you'll see all the amazing things they've been working on.
And that's HOLA, Ola.
Yes.
I think that's so cool. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Did anything else come in, Katie?
We did have one more question come in from Grady and Kathleen. They said they're familiar with Jackson Park and Tuxedo Park, and you mentioned Hickory Nut Gorge. Can you mention the other units or parks in the system?
There's a lot of them.
Let me see if I can get them off the top of my head now. We have Etowah Park in the Etowah community. We have Tuxedo Park, it's the newest park in the Tuxedo community. We have East Flat Rocks Park, it's down off the Spartanburg Highway. We have Dana Park in the Dana community. We have what is affectionately referred to as Old Edneyville Park in Edneyville. And then we have the newer Edneyville Community Center. We have Westbelt Park over by the airport, which is a kind of nature trail area, picnic area, and river access. We have two other river access points, one in Horseshoe and the other one called Blantyre River Access. Those are all partnership with the North Carolina Wildlife Division for the docks and the river access there. Okay, now I'm listing off the top of my head. What am I missing here? Well, you mentioned the Hickory Nut Gorge, and
Aren't there like 22 facilities?
No, we have 13 of the park areas, but 2 of them are inactive. The New Bell Trail and the Kuntz Farm. So yeah, I'm missing one. I'm gonna ring off the top of my head to go back through. But anyway, those are the bulk of them. They're large ones. Some have more sports-oriented areas, such as Jackson Park with a lot of sports fields. All the activities and the athletics and activity center is the other one, where we have our one synthetic turf field for soccer. It can also be used for football and things. And Etowah Park is our other big sports complex. We have 4 youth-size ball fields out there. So we get a lot of use of those. I think that's it.
Those are all the questions that we've got.
All right. Well, I think we've about taken care of our speaker, and appreciate having you and carry on. And I must say to all of you out there, let's support our parks and get out there and be active. It's so important, as we know. So stay tuned for July's Green Drinks. We may or may not be back at Appalachian Coffee. We'll just keep you posted on that one. So thanks again, Carleen, and we'll see you on the trail.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.